You might think that cables are one of the more advanced knitting techniques out there, and while impressive, they're actually really simple to do. So let me show you how. Essentially, a cable is a way to give your knitting texture by knitting stitches out of order, and that twists your fabric. And I'll show you what that means in a second. And there are just so many variations of cables. It really is endless. But once you learn the basic move I'm going to show you, you'll be able to master them all. So I have a swatch here that I've made up with two very common cables. So this one on the right, it looks more like a braid. And then the one on the left is more of a twist. So both of these are very easy to do, and I'll show you how to do them both. You can see here, in order to make them stand out, we have garter stitch, and then the cable is in stockinette. And cable patterns can get really complex in their usage of knit and purl stitches, but let's keep it simple today, shall we? So it starts off pretty simply. Most of the rows are going to be kind of your standard knitting and purling. The difference is going to be when we get to the spot where we need to make our cable. So when you come up to the stitches that you're going to need to cable, your pattern might indicate it, you know, any of these different ways. And in order to cable, what you're going to need is either a cable needle. People will use these to slip the stitches and hold them, but I like to use a double pointed needle, and I'll show you why in just a second. So what you want to do is slip the number of stitches indicated in your pattern and slip them purlwise. So go in like you're purling and slip three for me, 3 stitches. And your pattern should say whether to hold them in the front or hold them in the back, because you're going to be knitting without them. So mine are supposed to be held in the front for this little twist right here. So what you do is you just knit the next number of stitches. A lot of times it's going to be the same number that's on your needle, but not necessarily. It's a little tricky to maneuver with this big double pointed needle, but so I like to use the double pointed needle because now I can just knit these 3 stitches instead of slipping them back on to the left-hand needle, which is what you would do if you were using a cable needle. There you go. And then you just continue on knitting as normal. And that is essentially how a cable is made. Okay, so 4 rows later, we're coming to another cable row. And this is for our little twist. And so what you want to do, we took 3 stitches off last time and held them in the front. And now they're going to be held in the back. So then we knit our 3. And then we knit the 3 off the cable needle. And that creates our little twist. I don't personally swatch that often, but if you have a sweater that needs to fit well and it has a ton of different cable patterns, it is probably best to make a few to see how they turn out, because different patterns can really pull your yarn out of shape. So for this larger one, I'm going to slip 6 stitches onto the needle and then hold that in the back. And then I'm going to knit 6. And with the braided twist, every 8 rows, we're going to do this same move. And then I can just knit those right from the needle. Let's talk about yarn choice as well. If you want the most sculptural stitches, it's best to pick a really crunchy yarn. Now, I personally wouldn't do this because I would never want to make a garment that I would never wear because the yarn doesn't feel good. So if you choose a softer yarn, the cables might not pop out as much, but that's definitely a trade I'm willing to make. I've also made sweaters and hats and headbands in soft yarn with cables, and they look really great. So there we have our little twist and our big twist. There, wasn't that easy?